All right.
All right. Following this budget workshop of the Wood Creek City Council order of July 3rd, it's 4 p.m. Please call the roll.
Sir. Mayor Jeff Rusker,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Hines. Here. Councilmember Linnea Bailey. Here. Councilmember Chris Grummer.
Here.
Councilmember Bob Lambert.
Here.
Councilmember Krista Richardson.
Here.
All right.
Okay.
I will. I just want to make it clear to everybody, P and Z meets at 5, so we have a hard stop. So we need to stay on topic. So what we're trying to do here is, make some decisions on our budget for 24-25. And, the goal is to have enough information together so that when we have another workshop next Wednesday at 4 o'clock prior to the city council meeting, we should be able to put some, I say final numbers, it's a misnomer, but some numbers together that we can hopefully vote on, that evening, and have a proposed budget to the city secretary, in advance of the July 19th deadline for posting a proposed budget. So that's the goal. We're gonna do it? Yes. If Linnea's shaking her hand, we're gonna do it.
What got passed out? Do I have it? Do you have it?
I don't have,
It's coming.
okay.
Okay,
They're kind of, what she's doing is putting together like a good package.
okay. Well, in the meantime, do you mind if I explain this thing?
Yes, please.
Okay. So on your desk, as you know, I wasn't here for the last workshop, but I did watch the meeting so that I could be prepared for today with you guys. And I went ahead and took notes and just kind of recapped it for us. And, in this document, anything you see with the gray highlighting are things that, I wanted to draw attention to for this meeting or moving forward, meaning that they are either items that remain under question or, were things that we need to take into an account for the budget planning. So if somebody mentioned, hey, I'd like to increase it $3,000, I just made that note to make sure that we track that change. And then some of the things highlighted, no, but you can just have this. Some of the things highlighted, you do have it? Oh, sorry. Are, like, I made a note of like, do we need these amendments, right? Because we talked about how we went over on spending on a couple of things, the radar times, the brush pickup. So just pay attention to the things that are highlighted. The rest of it is the notes. You guys were present for the meeting, but I thought it would be handy for us to just have that track record. But like I said, the things that are highlighted are the ones that, we need to pay attention to moving forward. So like we need to figure out what our annual maintenance is for Civic Plus. I don't know if anybody nailed that from the fund view. It has that note that you mentioned, Chris, about how much to expect.
I'll get that.
Then, we talked about having a forensic accountant, so we need to make sure we have a budget line item for that. Krista requested an increase in oak boat containment. Oh, these are front and back, so that matters. And then the rest is just stuff, I mean, I'll bring up any of the questions and things as we move on, but that's what that is.
Thanks for doing that.
So what are we looking at?
Yeah, go ahead, Linnea.
Okay,
Which one are we looking at?
all right. This one looks like that shows,
Revenue comparison?
right,
I don't have any.
I don't have that.
Yeah. One more, there is one more.
Is that the revenue?
Oh.
Please.
okay. Last week I had spent a lot of time on cost numbers to date, trying to get fund view, logical. But what I spent the last couple of days on were revenue numbers, because my thinking is we need to know how much revenue we have
Correct.
before we can really effectively start spending it. And I think we might have to be cautious, but let's just real quickly go through these numbers. What is on this comparison? The first one that says budget, the first on the left, that is our budget. And that comes off of Fund View. The next one is the actual numbers as of now to date spent. So that's second column or earned. So, then the third is 21, 22 actual, that's our statement from our audited statement. And same thing with 22, 23. That's the audited statement. So you can see, we may have more money coming in for taxes. We haven't seen it yet, but I think we need to, look at these numbers. We budgeted 368. We collected 350 so far. 22, we collected 357. 23, 366. In the last 2 years, in the last quarter, we've collected $6,000. So we may not collect the entire 368. But anyway, it's still a relevant number for us to budget. The next number is sales tax. In 23, the greatest, number of sales tax we collected was in 23 at 110. We budgeted 90,000 and mixed beverage 1,500. We collected 70,000 so far. In 22, we collected 90.
Are there quarterly payments from the control?
Sego?
Are they quarterly payments?
No, this one is annual. Other reports.
No, the sales tax.
Oh, they're quarterly, yeah.
Okay, so we've only received 2 payments,
Excuse me, let me,
right?
Well,
no, the sales tax is monthly.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we are at 70,000. It's highly likely we will collect at least another 20,000. That would be on target.
Well, we're
So,
halfway through the year, right?
well, we're 3/4.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We only
I
have
know.
July, August, September to go. So, so our 91,000, if we want to go forward with budget for next year, that's a good number. The franchise fees are the most troublesome, and part of this is, I've been working with Jim. Things haven't been coded where we could really understand them. So, it shows that we've only collected 67,000 so far in franchise fees. If you see how I'm looking at the second column, actual today, and we projected that we collect 194,000. Lorraine, the biggest gap there is, they were still owed about 80,000 from Aqua Texas.
well, we have to be careful about that concept
Okay.
of being owed it, because they technically don't actually owe us it at all.
Okay,
And that has nothing to do with the new franchise agreement we signed with them. It has everything to do with the fact that that payment was never based on anything. It was a holdover from, gosh, I don't know if you remember all the history on that, but essentially they were paying it to us without our franchise agreement. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the franchise agreement. And it's kind of this arbitrary amount. And you can see, like, 1 year they didn't pay the full 100,000 either. So
Okay.
I don't know where we're landing on that, because that amount isn't actually tied to, like, do you know what I'm talking about?
It's
One
not
other way to
like-
explain it.
Supposed to be tied to their road.
It is, but it's not in our franchise agreement. It's not part of our agreement with them. It's like, how did he explain it? It's something from whenever the whole, you
Yeah,
remember that?
yeah, I remember a discussion about it. And it was, but, oh, don't worry about it,
They pay it, they pay, it's just that we don't always know
we gotta.
how much.
Lena, you got a copy of the email from their financial person?
Yes. And, it was in these things that I'm gonna have, that I had copied. I don't see where it is. But anyway, Lorraine had sent, the numbers did correspond to last year, but this year, it looks like we still may be owed something in the neighborhood of 71,000, but it wasn't on her schedule. So,
Is there a better number we can look at? I'm just trying to think about right now then.
I think we need Aquas to tell us about it, because essentially, what we're talking about right now is whenever I first got on council, their, the franchise agreement was undone. And, that was one of the first things we took up. And in those meetings, this amount got brought up, and it essentially was established that this isn't part of our franchise agreement necessarily, and it's an old thing, and so we need to kind of go down that paper trail and figure that out, but they continued to pay it out when we had no franchise agreement with them.
So we'll get on the horn with
Yeah, I'm just
Craig and Lorraine.
thinking about
what
what they're
they're,
trying to get
what we
some
can
kind of
project.
number.
Well, I mean, you can see 1 year they paid,
Yeah, 28,
yeah, 20, what does that say?
last year's.
Yeah, 29,000.
okay, that's a little bit deceptive, but you'll see. Okay, in this piece of paper, this is what the audit came from. And I have a question of the auditors.
And this is a quarterly statement.
This is based on, accrual. So somehow when they did the accrual, they didn't include any of Q1 franchise payments. So they must have said, well, they were actually due the prior year. They're not reflected in the prior year. So we have a little bit of confusing information in that, that page, it's not that they didn't pay it. It's the auditors.
Sometimes it matters when they pay it.
Yes, well, that's it, is that last quarter, usually gets recorded. So it's from July, August, September, and it gets recorded in the middle of October. So, okay, so that's a questionable, number. And what was the new bit?
So right now, we just, in my head, I have a zero idea of what number that would be.
Well, let's don't quite go there. Let's
Okay.
look at 2023, when we did not get that larger payment from Aqua Texas. We collected 137,000
Where-
from other franchise fees.
Total.
Yeah. So here where we budgeted 194, maybe what we budgeted this year is closer to 140. But that's one we have some questions on. Okay, the next column is, development revenue. You can see back in 23, we had 45,000. We just don't have as much development going on. We budgeted 11,000, we collected 5,400. We may not get the full 11,000, but, that's a smallish number. We still could probably budget something in the neighborhood, maybe the difference, 7,500 this upcoming year. Next category needs explaining, interest income. We don't show, it shows 70,000 that we have coming, 24,937, that we've actually received. This is another one of those situations where that interest income has come in, but with our transition from QuickBooks to FundView, I just don't think it's being
That
properly.
number is absolutely wrong.
Yeah, it's just not,
We're well over 70,000 right now,
okay.
I'm pretty sure. Like we were at,
In interest.
yes, because we were at like 30 or 40 at the start of the year.
Cause we were all like, wow.
Well, it's because we finally moved all that money, we need to do it again, actually, that was on my note.
Okay,
We moved a bunch of money sitting in a bank into interest developing accounts, plus the bond money was developing interest until spent. So I believe that 24,000, something's very wrong there.
okay.
That's all Texas class.
So this one we can solve before we put in a number for that. But that next line, the TDM, the 190,000.
That's a one-timer.
Well,
Yeah,
it's not, it actually shouldn't be here. But for our budgeting purposes, because that is money we get for money on the other side that we spend. So it's like we have a bucket of receipts we actually spent 270,000 for the ice storm. And because of that, we get reimbursed. So that's not a number. that
Yeah,
goes-
that's a wash.
That's
We're not
just a
gonna- we're not
wash.
gonna budget that. for next
So,
year.
right, but the only thing we'll budget in that category will be our interest income. Okay, license and permits. Again, it almost offsets our development revenue. We budgeted 5,000 roughly, and we collected 11,500. So we're a little bit ahead on that one. But here's where I'm getting down to what I really want to make a point about. These total revenues without any adjustments. For 930 on our budget, we collected 719 so far. Of course, that doesn't include some of those franchise fees. If we adjust it out for the grant the TDM we did get 191,895. That means that our real revenue after that grant adjustment is budgeted 740, collected 527. Previous year, our total, we have to adjust out for the, bond, $425,000 bond. So we collected 700. 2023, we collected 780,000. The next two lines, with the addition of another professional for the office, we'll have our total personnel costs will be at about 250,000, but with health insurance and retirement and all that, it adds about 28% to the overall number.
I'm sorry,
So-
did you jump to another handout?
No, the second page.
Yeah, I'm just explaining where that 320,000 came from. Here's what I was trying to get to, because this was surprised me. Okay. We're paying out 320,000 in personnel. We're really using up our 740,000 pretty fast. And if I estimated a bond payment of 250.
The bond payment doesn't come out of this.
Doesn't come out, okay.
Right.
So maybe I was just looking at cash flow, but so we would just add back 250.
And where are you getting the personnel costs from? Is
Okay.
it trying to,
Yes, all right. And I didn't detail this exactly on the sheets, but, we're adding a person for, no, not, okay. We're not,
Not planned.
not over 200,000, I mean, gosh,
No, what we've got on the current year budget was 282, 230.
282, okay,
We're not gonna hit that. And in fact, one of my goals would be to, level that off. Instead of, not 320, but, if it even approaches 282, I'll just.
okay. Because we don't have the manager's fee, but I thought we were gonna hire somebody for about 70.
Well, yeah, but that's 50 less than what we were paying our previous man.
But we've also added Jim at 60. Here's what I added up. I added up 60, 70, 55, 35, and 30.
Okay, so just,
250,
just in terms of, number of FTEs,
okay?
I've had discussions, I've gone back in history, I've talked to people who have done the job before. I've talked to people who are doing the job now, and the general consensus is we don't really need a full-time code administrator and a full-time city, administrator. And those positions can be, won again as they were, for years and years. So that's what my goal will be as we start recruiting for a city administrator. The city administrator can also handle some code administration.
Or not have to be full-time.
Right,
I
certainly
was
not,
just
full-time, certainly not.
Getting down to
not
this
full-time.
line, I'm thinking, uh-oh, we're going up too much, and,
No, that's gonna be significantly less than first.
okay. When you said that bond payment does not come out of this number,
So when they did the tax calculations, they give us an M and O budget, which is what we can spend. That's the 365 or whatever.
okay,
But then there's also a percentage that was set aside for INS, which is what we use to pay for our debt. And it doesn't show up here because it's separated out, but that's what pays this.
Let me back up. So
okay,
the Hayes County says, this is all your property taxes for the year.
right.
What's your debt service? And we say, this is our debt service payment. And they say, boop, 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 here's your tax rate that you can consider, right? And they give us those couple options. So the highest rate without going to vote, the one where you go to the vote, whatever. That tax rate, what he's talking about, those two portions, that INS, we cannot touch. And that is what goes to that bond payment. And that's our anchor point, and that's kind of out of our control. And then whatever is left over in that tax rate, that's what we get to adjust, the M and O. So if we are like, oh gosh, our budget's looking like we need more taxes, that's where you get to push it up to that voter, like no, whatever voter approval rate, right? But if you're looking like, hey, we can actually keep our budget low, you can drop that M and O down, that tax rate down. So it's not like, basically the debt service and our taxes, all of that gets calculated for us before we get to touch our budget.
Yeah.
And it's just like set aside. We have to account for all of it in our paperwork, but, we don't have to worry about that when we're looking at our budget.
So but the ad valorem tax is really more than that budgeted number?
Yeah, well,
We
that's
we like 500 and something,
Okay,
like close to
All right,
6,
600,000
Yeah.
in ad valorem taxes. It just, this says ad valorem tax, it should really say ad valorem tax,
M&O.
M&O,
yeah, okay.
maintenance and operation.
All right. Well, that's where I was looking at this and saying.
Can we add,
It
maybe it's a good point just for the future as well. Maybe we actually on that 3,000 code, we built little parentheses around it.
Yeah. Well, and oftentimes whenever we've done these proposed budgets, we do account for all of that at the bottom. We talk about debt service and it's a in and out immediately, and at the bottom is what we've done in the past. So it's in the discussion, we all see it. We also see whenever we've had a deficit or a surplus in it, so sometimes we've collected extra INS. And all of that gets held at the county, and you can see it in our audit report.
Okay,
But it just gets rolled over each year until, as council, we say, we want to apply that to the debt service this year. The county just holds it. Like, we don't even ever touch that INS money.
Didn't we have that in the previous,
We applied it to that last
we were
page.
just sitting there and we're like, what's this?
okay. So that then, other than the questions about, Upper Texas, we probably have enough to estimate what our revenue stream will be.
So part of the problem with the Aqua Texas, that franchise, I think we were actually getting paid for properties that were not inside Wood Creek. It was part of the reason why it dropped so significantly too. And that was sort of discovered through that franchise process. So it might not get back up to 100,000, and we need to figure out what it is. Yeah, I don't know who, I guess, I don't even know who in the company to ask.
Well, it looked like Lorraine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Lorraine.
Yeah, Lorraine is the.
And when she gave me the projections, there wasn't any sizable number in there, so we'll just have to define that.
Yeah,
That's
we
what
can go,
this
we can
is?
go down, we can go sit down with Craig and Lorraine and.
Yeah.
And just say, okay, what's it gonna be? We've got a budget for next year, you know, what's it gonna be?
Right, okay.
It looks like it's gonna be that. The 34, 35, right?
The 135, or,
Oh, what is that? Oh,
It was for last page.
oh, I'm sorry.
So I don't think we can count on more than the 35. I don't think we're gonna get that 100 grand again.
okay,
Cause they were paying us for the whole CCN or CNN or CCN.
well, and that's where we can depend on this, the QuickBooks from 2023. It does not include, it only includes 40,000 from architecture, and that total is 137, so maybe we're in that range.
Yeah.
Closer.
All right.
Okay, then, I guess we can look at the fund year numbers.
That's this revenue expense report?
Yeah, just start going through the other cost categories and see.
What's the front page look like?
It looks like that.
It's the sideways one,
Okay.
it's the landscape.
Oh man, but there's no prior year. Gee. Okay.
Yeah, I also need to find out.
Okay, they're not side by side, but you've got the prior year on these two, the 2023 and 2022 budgets.
So the prior year is loaded into fund view, that's accurate?
There's
Okay.
nothing prior.
No, QuickBooks.
Okay, so I don't,
Access to, no, the prior years are not in fund.
yeah, do you have that other thing you're looking at? I don't know, we don't.
Here's one. These are things.
You want this one?
No, you've got that.
No, I have that, that's, what's the other
Yes.
thing you held up? Yeah, that, where's that?
That's-
Okay,
that's
there's
46.
22 and
Do you have
23.
two copies in front of you?
See this one here that you're talking about?
Yeah.
In the authority.
No, that's not that, not, is that it?
I have a 21, 22.
And this is 23.
Okay, this is 21, 22.
Yes, it's 23 on this one.
It's 23 here.
You got it too? Is that an extra or is this?
I wait, I have no, I'll find them. Look on the 23 over there, Chris.
I'm only seeing 21, 22.
In 20.
Okay, got it. You're good.
Then
I mean,
So this is 22, 23 fiscal year end is at the right hand side? Is that what I'm seeing?
correct.
Okay, so this is last year's expenses, actual expenses, right?
Yes,
Okay.
for the auditor,
And
so. you
Okay,
can-
okay, last year. Actual. Okay, so that's helpful. What is?
That first category is going to be personnel. Last year was 212, 215. This year we projected at 282. And Mary is saying that we probably will be that or less.
that's my goal.
That's a big category, so, okay. Office expense this year. And a lot of software.
On you.
Lot of just a minute, the total year to date for that office expense is 80,000. That's fund view at 43, at 30,000.
And that's but we have to figure out what part of that is
Was a fixed cost and which will be ongoing. So hopefully,
Current estimated 14.
that's what I remember Kevin saying.
okay,
Or per year?
no,
Yeah.
we're on.
Annual, yeah.
Annual,
Yeah.
Okay, so that cuts us down our overall category by 15,000. That's still only then 85,000.
And the website, the one right above it, that was a one-time cost. We don't expect the maintenance to be that.
No,
Okay.
the subscriptions for both FundView and for Civic Engage are gonna be less than what we paid this year, because in both cases, we pay significant amounts of money for both companies for the stuff, just to get it going. Then we've got we've got an annual fee that we pay them for the licensing. So that's true on both of those services.
And that will be also the website maintenance.
Yeah, that's part of the subscription. I mean, but maintenance is like, we don't call them and say, hey, post this meeting, that's on us.
It's, hey, somebody messed it up, can you go in and fix it?
Yeah, but I mean, there's a certain level of just support, so if you go in and just say, hey, I need to, ask a question, that's included in the subscription. If you have an emergency support request, that's paid. So we have to avoid the emergency requests.
But, so when we get the proposed budget, you're gonna have the actual numbers of the subscription. I would like to request, if we find out what one emergency would cost, to have that at least in that budget.
They did not give us that total.
Because it's like an hourly rate kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it's dependent on the problem. For example, there's some problems that can't be fixed. So if
It's
somebody does
an
that-
hourly, it's just an hourly deal.
And you'll notice that one that's called software and subscriptions. Our actual cost is right at 24,000. That's on IT, there's several components in that, so that may not go down.
But that also, there's like Adobe Suites and all that.
Yeah, and so we budgeted 24,000, we spent just about that. That may be a solid number.
Yeah.
And here we put in 8,000 for City Hall maintenance and repair, we spent 1,300. So some of these categories, we may be able to bring them down based on what we did actual this year.
Question, did we get the printer that we talked about that you needed?
The scanner, yes.
Yes. And we didn't put that under office equipment? We don't know.
I wasn't associated with coding.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, but we did get it,
Yeah.
and that was a one-time cost.
It's yeah.
But I'm just wondering where we put it
Well, it
here.
might not be expense then, it might be considered an asset.
Yeah, it would be because of
It would be because
it's
it's
a
not
capital
within
asset.
a 1-year useful life. So it probably doesn't show up. It would be cash flow item, but not.
Okay.
Would be.
Yeah, office equipment is going to be lower. Probably expenditures, I don't know what we tend to capitalize usually, it's about $5,000.
So office expense would be,
Office equipment
we
would
like
be,
to use Xerox because we rent that.
yes, it wouldn't be the copier, but if
It wouldn't be.
if we needed staplers, if we needed, a new computer for Zoom, that's gonna be, a less than capitalized expense, then it might go into that office equipment. That would make sense to put it there. Office supplies, the package staples.
But that rental of the Xerox machine. That happens to be in software and subscription.
Mhm.
I just remember
Oh, okay.
seeing it plugged into there.
So under professional services, on the next page, the
Okay.
audit expense, you made a note, and I really supported this idea of
Mhm.
having that initial kind of deep dive audit. Did we find any numbers on that?
No, actually haven't, spent time on that, but where well, we have several categories. We've got audit expense, which is our audit financial. That will be there. But what I was talking about is having an outside accounting firm auditor to monitor or look at how we set up fund view.
So
Because-
would you put that under the 10?
Yeah.
So since we didn't have an accounting thing, we already had, it appears we never used that we already.
Well, we somehow spent $11,000.
Yeah, it got, that's definitely that's gotta be coded incorrectly.
I would
It's gotta be
think
a
so,
pain, I don't know who else
because
that would
we
be if
didn't-
it's under accounting,
yeah.
unless you're pulling something on the sideline.
I work for Dr. Pepper, so.
Hated Dr. Peppers.
So for a budget, when we next refer to on the actual proposed budget under accounting, we'll
Yeah.
be
You
referring
would want
to,
to have something in there.
Yeah,
and we'll be referring to this concept of an outside accounting looking into our.
yeah.
Something like quarterly account audit,
I really like the idea of quarterly.
and that's explains it pretty well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Bob, I'm sorry, to be informal here. Bob, I like that idea of, when you're taking notes and you're saying, like, maybe we could add this one word. I want us to understand what these different things mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then also then when people are coding them, they could also go, oh, that's what that is. So when I hope we do put the word quarterly after accounting, because I think that's, we all need to understand what this line is.
And try to remember what's old and what's new as well. Is it a new idea or? is it-
Yeah.
That's gonna be partial memory, unfortunately.
No, actually, the fund view thing allows us to make notes, so that, we were trying to get me access in there today. We're still working on that, we sent the emails a while ago, but, essentially, in that, each draft you can take notes, so when you move to the next draft, the notes are present and accounted for, so that you can track all of this stuff, and then even after you accept it, your notes are there, so when we go and look at this year's budget accepted, right, and we go, and next year, whoever's planning can look and say, okay, in the notes, it'll say, all right, we dedicated $7,000 for park improvements and $3,000 for park sport events. And so then there's that, if it comes up, what did we put to where and why? There is that note-taking system. Now, that'll be dependent on whoever's managing it to use it. So we need whoever takes over that job needs to be pushed to use that feature, because every single year we have this exact same like issue
So
of
that,
like,
that will help a lot going forward.
yeah.
What about the idea also in Word, which is a great, whoever invented it, deserves everything, but putting an edit date or something like that, even if it's embedded.
It's
you can't see it.
timestamps.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's timestamped, then we can see the history of it.
It's timestamps.
It doesn't necessarily save previous drafts, if that makes sense. But if you were to download that draft, you could hold it in a different database. But it does timestamp when you updated it, and it does convey the notes through the drafts, if that makes sense. But, in the meantime, what we're gonna provide for the next budget workshop is a side-by-side that looks more like the final document you have to have. I don't know, I've already kind of started it in Excel while we're sitting here talking.
Well, and that's what I worked on last week, all the side by side for the expense categories.
Yeah, let's
Well,
make sure you get coordinated, so.
yeah,
So, I'm sorry, do you have other things you wanted to go to, or,
um,
because I'm curious about Deborah's notes as well. Was there anything you wanted to ask about?
Well, there's a whole, so I gotta be honest,
Because we only have a couple
we're
minutes.
pretty far behind in this process still, and this amount of documents is not going to work. And, so what we need to do for the next meeting is have one unified document with, the side-by-side categories outlined. And in there, we need to be able to track these things that have been, changed,
Yeah, so
so.
what we entered this, it's like, okay, so we've got, you know, the budget items, we've got the accounts. You know, we've got what's in there, you know, what we've budgeted in the past, so we have some background on it. You know, we need a column that says, you know, what are we gonna do, you know, in the future, what are we proposing? That can, some of it may be, hey, it's set, we're just gonna go ahead and type it in. But some of those items may be, no, we, you know, we want $5,000 for that, so you can write that in. And so that becomes the fund view, as we're entering stuff in 420, 425, that's where that stuff comes from, where we're gonna plug it into fund view.
I'm just, the reason I asked is, was there anything on your documents that you needed to ask us, because you,
No, but there's loads of notes of things that have to be documented and changed, and so we need one uniform document to be working off of,
that's all I wanted to do.
so.
Well, I have done the expense categories last week. This week I concentrated on revenues. So if I had finished this up, this kind of document would give us where we are today, the 2 prior years.
Actually, all we need is, it's literally 2 columns. It was what we budgeted last year and what we plan to budget this year. And what's great is you can have those comparison columns to look at, but what we need to publish is that.
Oh, yeah, I realize that, but historical data still helps us make our better decisions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those come out typically in all of the quarterly financial reports and things, so when, you know, when we're looking at the budget, this is probably way more information than we need to be looking at in a given point in time, if that makes sense. And I know we're behind on the finance reporting, which is part of that, we're trying to catch up with that while do this. But do you have that document that you said I mean, are any of these digital where they can be, yeah, so we need to get a unified digital document.
I will get that one together.
Okay, can you two work together on that,
We'll
please?
work together.
So, go ahead.
But, and just, some of this, like the watershed protection plan, we got that under professional services. That won't be in the upcoming budget.
Yeah, well,
Yes,
no, we have a
We do
3-year
that
agreement.
annually.
3 years.
It's a 3-year agreement.
Oh, okay.
And this year was the first year. So we have 2.
Okay. And, well, I didn't know that. So also this big category of engineering and legal that we'll need to define. Okay, now, you need to go to your.
what do you mean, what category engineering needs to be defined?
We budgeted 30,000. To date, we've spent 27,000. And this would be engineering that isn't associated with a project. So,
Which engineering, is it the reimbursable?
No.
no,
5106.
So that is engineering associated with the city,
yes,
not whenever we have
Do a
them
project.
review.
no,
Well, there are projects for us, but not whenever so those are not the same engineers that go and review when somebody submits a permit,
No.
right? So they are projects,
SATS.
yes. And so our engineers also review some of our plans, but that's typically reimbursed, so that's under the reimbursables. Like if we have a big subdivision plan come in, our engineers are involved in that review process, but we get reimbursed for that cost. So that line should just be whenever they work on our projects or consult with us directly.
And I believe that's what that is.
Yeah, I'm just wondering
We don't have
if,
a
I'm just wondering if ACS is a part of that.
No,
No,
Okay,
that's under the permanent thing.
okay.
I did have a question,
So 5106 is basically, Capris and three Turks,
yeah.
three Turks.
I did have a question for council that came up from the last meeting. Do we want to create an itemized billing option for engineers in regards to whenever they consult with advisory boards? Y'all discussed that you said there is no itemized line for that. Would we want to make a differentiation? Because the INM might be consulting with them, so would it be good to kind of break that out, you know, how much that's costing?
That's a budget.
Okay.
It'll be over.
it just seems like that can get awfully expensive.
Well, that's why we created the legal for council, so it can be tracked independently, and monitored differently.
Yeah, it's just tracking to have those different lines.
Right.
I had a question about the parks projects. Right now, they have not finished any of their projects. Hopefully, by the end of this fiscal year, they will have, but have we gotten any kind of, scope on like what they're anticipating not being done with, or more work that might be needed?
At this point, it looks like we're gonna get most, if not all of it done. The rain garden stuff will be done in September, October.
That's outside of this.
Yeah, it is. But that's.
So we just need to carry over a budget, is what I'm saying. We need to know what they need and make
Well,
sure that
And that's in the POSAC budget, not in this budget.
it has to still be in this
Inside.
budget, yeah.
Okay.
Because you can't spend money that's not allocated here, even if it's coming from a reserved fund, which suppose that grant is a reserved fund, you still have to have it itemized in your proposed budget. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. The POSAC money just sits there in that reserved fund. What else?
And by the time we get to the proposed budget, will we have this much has been spent thus far on those acts?
Yeah, and you've gotten most of that already. Last week, everything was out except for $35,000. And they're not even planning on spending most of even that $35,000.
So,
They haven't submitted any plans to spend it, because they can't plan
That's
to
what I was
spend.
saying when I came in. Ruthann was saying, okay, well, what do we spend on? So she is trying to think, and she's trying to think of what parks needs to do in the
Right.
coming year. But she needed some background information, which didn't know what to give her.
because I was speaking with Taffy, and there's things that are coming in still to her.
Third, an item came in.
But yeah, well, I mean, she had the tree, the
Yeah.
thing too.
Yeah,
But then there was-
that item.
But there was enough,
It's gonna be really hard this year to look at actuals
yeah.
at all. Just because of the discrepancies in how things were entered into fund view and the amount of work Linnea is having to go through to clean that up. And even the meetings I just listened to where her and the accountant through fund view are sitting there going, what in the crap? So I don't anticipate accurate financials. And in fact, even in the last meeting, when you say January and February, things are not even in the reports that are being generated yet. I mean, that is a huge mess, all on its own. So at this point, I would probably not even look at last year's actuals.
We've got about 5 minutes, people.
Well, and what I realized that, and in order to really have good, clean financials, we won't have it in time for the budget. That's why I was trying to use the actuals that were good from 22 and 23. And then the rest of it, we just have to do the best we can, oh God.
Linnea, we don't have a lot of time for the meeting next week for me to get a document into the packet. Can you send your digitals to me so I can prep that final document by Friday?
Yes,
What I would ask everybody to do, we've got all of this documentation that Linnea put together, and we have from FundView and from QuickBooks. You've got prior year, you've got current year, go back over the next couple of days. You've got a holiday weekend, so, get a cup of coffee and sit down on the deck and start going through this and putting numbers in that you think make sense. And then, because then we can compare, say, well, I think we need 5,000 there. Well, I had 6. Well, why? Okay, well, let's make that 6. So what we don't have right now is those figures from you guys and as liaisons to your advisories and because you have interest in certain things that is maybe not part of your advisory board, but you have special interest in like accounting, what's that gonna cost? Let's try to jot some numbers down, so that when we meet again, we can start filling in those blanks and having something that we can and look at it as.
I probably have the basis for that number.
So is this the quarterly statement? Well, that's not the number, that's not the page you want to use.
No, I have the.
No, the quarterly statement, that's, now you can take the information from the quarterly statement. So the one document that has like zeros for the prior year balance, if you want to go in and start plugging numbers in, you can do that from here and just enter it into here and have everything on one sheet. If that's helpful, I mean, it'll take, 15 minutes to plug all those numbers in.
On Friday, when the budget workshop for next week gets posted, there will be a document.
Great.
It'll be the final document we're looking at. Where we make our final tweaks, where we're gonna verify that all these requests you guys made are adjusted and addressed essentially. But we have to have one unified document published. And that we work from, and then the goal being that when we go to the council meeting next Wednesday after that budget workshop. In that gap of time, we'll have tweaks finalized and you'll have your final draft in front of you. Then the public will actually have a document to come and offer comment on because we have not provided them with that yet either. And we need to do that.
Last year, we had one sheet. Will we have that one again?
We generated that sheet and we're going to do that again. That's why I'm saying, that's why I asked for your digital copies. So yeah, so we just pulled the QuickBooks information and then we delete and started from clear. So that's what I'm trying to get at. So if you just send me whatever digitals you have, I'll work that computer magic and make it look right, then we'll be ready to go.
And I've got notes to contact FundView and Civic Plus, for, annual fees and also to get with FundView and say, when can we expect to get that 22, 23 data, into FundView, but they've got it. And I went through it with them and checked it, and they said, yeah, it looks good, so I don't know what that transition plan is. I said, let's do it, but it's still not good, so that would be nice to have at least one past year in there that we can make comparison. Now, does it create new problems? Very potentially, since uploading this year created all kinds of problems. So it could create even more, so Linnea, you and I are gonna have that conversation.
Right.
Are you around Friday?
Yeah.
So I can be here all day, you can stop by.
Okay.
All right, so, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Thank you,
and
Krista.
Thank you, guys.
All those
Hand it
documents.
over.
That's why I was texting her.